Good afternoon. How are you doing?
How are you? Not bad yourself?
I am well, thank you. Glass, and I have a chilled bottle of Breadrin. So
Hey.
we're
So,
ready to roll.
we met at the Bread and Jam festival. How did you
We
find
did.
it this year?
I found it, and actually that was the first time I went to Bread and Jam. I should be ashamed of that, as I'm in the sort of industry of small food and drink businesses. I thought it was really good. Actually, it was good to have a face to face. It was good to meet some people for the first time for 2 years. Um, and because we were launching our program, in fact, the second day of the Bread and Jam, which was our Sainsbury's Thrive program, it was a good opportunity to actually get out there and meet some entrepreneurs that can come into our program. So I found it pretty good. Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, again, and same as me. This was my first Bread and Jam, so it was interesting. It's like I found it a little bit overwhelming because it's like seeing people who you've respected for a long time, and you bump into them and go, "Oh, I've seen your content," and then they're there in front of you, and you're thinking, "This is surreal," but it's very inspiring. Were there any talks you watched that stood out?
I didn't really get a lot of chance to do the talks. I find when I'm there is that I spend most of my time networking with the community of founders, and some of the talks I mean, it sounds dreadful, but I don't learn too much from them. But what I do learn is when I talk to individual founders, and I'd rather do that. So no, there was no one talk that really stood out.
Okay,
Um,
then. What were those brands that captured your imagination?
all of my brands, all the ones we invested in. And I was making sure that because there were so many of the speakers were from our portfolio of brands, I was making sure that they name drop Mission Ventures as many times as they possibly could. And
Oh,
in fact, the one they did one with John Stapleton, who's a fellow director of Mission
yeah.
Ventures, with Marika from Snackzilla, and not she didn't mention our name once. Boy, oh boy, are we going to strike her out of the program? But no, no, it was. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was there were some really interesting products in there. Someone trying to resurrect the bug, the bugs, the trying to resurrect more probiotic, which I think is the right thing to do. Someone trying to target people at the end of life rather than millennials, which is really good. So sort of
Okay.
cakes very specifically targeting end of life, that those sort of last 5 years to the old people. I thought that was really interesting.
That's quite interesting because you always yeah, that's quite an interesting idea to do that.
Hmm. No one. It's a completely uncluttered market, and she was trying to feed her father, who I'm afraid is dead now. But in those last few years, she really struggled when the palate of the old person sort of disintegrates and they can't taste. They generally want to go
Yeah,
sweet, and then they end up eating real rubbish when you need to be eating nutrition. So how do you get old people to eat nutrition yet still taste good? Because they will reject anything that doesn't really largely taste sweet because they lose their savory palate. And so I thought it was a very good observation, and she produced a great set of products.
that's
But
cool.
and she was just looking for the initial seed investment. So I thought it was quite interesting.
Cool. So what are your initial thoughts on my brand or the product before you've tried it? Is there anything in particular you're expecting to?
Well, I am a kombucha drinker. I make my kombucha,
Okay.
and but which is good. So I'm expecting this, understanding sort of how you've brewed this to be kombucha-like, but it's branded beer-like. So I'm trying to get my head around what is it? Beer or kombucha? Is it going to be more probiotic and maybe slightly vinegary? Or is it going to be more like I think when we met at Bread and Jam, I thought there's another brand out there which I know quite well. Is it like effectively I'll say it's toast? Is it like
Yeah.
toast? And so which is very beer like and malty and definitely a substitute for beer, but but with a clear sustainable message. So I'm a little bit intrigued. And then when you put avocado and lime leaf over it, I think I'm even more intrigued, which suggests I think it's going to be a kombucha taste, more going to be a beer taste. Let me find out. I don't know.
Let's crack the bottle open and see what you think then.
Let's find out. Okay, it's quite lively, but that's fine. In fact, it's lively in a soft drinks way rather than a beer way. So the head, the head isn't a problem because it reduces immediately.
Yeah.
Hmm. Just checking to see if at the bottom of the if there's any sludge in the bottom, but I don't think there is.
No.
No, no. So there's no secondary fermentation going on in the bottle.
No.
Hmm. Okay. Well, it's more kombucha color than it is beer color. The smell is more fruity than I'm expecting. In fact, no beer notes. Quite lime, elderflower, and something else quite floral. I'm not sure. No sweetness in it at all. I quite like it.
But that's a good start. That's always a good start when they say they like it.
Okay, it's has a slight tartness to it because it has absolutely zero sugar. It's got no sweetness to it. There's quite a refreshment to it,
Yeah.
which is also supported by the fizz. The heavy fizz is going to help refreshment. Um,
So you should get like this subtle aniseedy taste, which comes from the avocado leaves, because avocado doesn't really have a flavor. When you have avocados, more the creaminess, but with the leaves, they produce like this aniseedy taste.
I
So
can
it should
taste
be
that. Yeah,
really subtle. I didn't want to overpower it because aniseed's one of those flavors where you either love it or don't. So I wanted it just there. And then you've got the kaffir
yeah.
lime leaves giving that citrus notes and the floralness to it.
Oh, is the floor all? Is it all coming from the lime leaf?
Yes.
The cafe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's good. Yes, I can get the aniseed. It's not definitely not overpowering, and it wasn't one of the first flavors that I spoke about unprompted. So, but now you mention it, yes, I can get it. But it's certainly if you don't like aniseed, you wouldn't be put off by that. I mean, it doesn't taste alcoholic. I know it says on the bottle 1.2%, but you
Yes.
wouldn't know. It doesn't have any alcohol taste to it at all. So much like kombucha, which has a very low alcohol content, this is sort of similar.
Cool. So I do a thing called Drink Advisor. So similar to like TripAdvisor, but obviously with reviewing a drink. So what would your rating out of 5 be?
I'm going to rate the drink 4 out of 5 for the drink.
Yeah.
I like it. How could it be improved? To be honest, I'm not sure. Maybe, I'm not sure. But do I love it? Which is a 5. No. Do I really like it? Yes, it's a 4.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect, of course, between the setup on the communication of sourdough and something called IPA, and what I'm drinking. So there's a disconnect. So if I want a beer substitute or another type of beer, was that? It's not that, but that's a good product. I just wouldn't market it like that.
So
Um,
behind my firstly, so what would your headline comment be for the review? So what would you if you were doing like that TripAdvisor thing, what would your headline comment be?
um, refreshing, refreshing floral drink, adult drink. Um, but it's not a beer placement.
Cool. And on your when you're talking about my positioning, I found this really hard one because I stumbled across this product and it, kombucha is slowly getting known throughout the UK. It's still very early days for people, although a lot more people, a lot of younger generation know what kombucha is. So my problem is
Yeah,
when you say kvass, I think you've heard of it before.
I,
Um,
I have, but
no one has heard of kvass over the UK, and it's trying to recreate that category, and that's hard when you're early days. So what I've tried to do is because it's that I find this product an in between product, so it's not a kombucha, but it's not a beer. So it's like how to describe it. So I wanted something like to hook people in. So by using the IPA, we try and use it in a different term. So instead of an Indian pale ale, it's an ideal plausible alternative. So you've got the first production run of the bottle. So on our second label, we're going to be pushing that more, saying it's an ideal plausible alternative. So it would make more sense. But I think the way I've gone about it is trying to hook people in from that beer angle instead of the health angle.
I can see that. It is a health drink. It's more of a tonic. It's more closer to some of the more I don't mean quinine tonic. I mean also people think like Purdy's
Yeah,
and so you know those the drinks that sit in the supermarkets that don't quite have a place. They're largely in the adult drink section
yeah,
up by the Schlur. And we have that's where this drink belongs. If you IPA it and then call it ideal plausible alternative, but still IPA, the memory structure of consumers is this it's beer. And so they're going to
yeah.
expect this is a beer alternative. So I think that would be, even though you're explaining it out further, I still think you're going to have some confusion because it's not a
Okay.
beer. It doesn't taste like a beer, doesn't look like a beer. It tastes like an adult alternative carbonated drink. And
Cool.
it tastes healthy. I mean, I think the probiotic, which is just going to continue to grow and grow as gut health just gets bigger and bigger, and really driving that one hard, I think would probably be a better route than trying to drive hard on IPA and brewing. But anyway,
Okay.
that's just my
No,
thought.
no. This is these tasting sessions are partly for me to understand how it's coming across to people. So even you saying that they is a very valuable thing. So when I've done a bit of research on your background, you mentioned about building lasting brands. Um, and you built them before. How do you think I should go about building my brand to become a lasting one, which lasts over a period of time?
Simply make sure you're fulfilling a consumer need that isn't being met by other things. So you need to identify what need or barrier, the consumer barrier you're overcoming, and make sure that that need there is true. So, I mean, what you're doing here is a good way. This is not quite consumer testing. It isn't because you're talking to people in industry, but talk to consumers and show them your product and listen to them very carefully about how they describe your product. Listen how they describe it and think, okay, if that's how they're describing it, go into the shops where you think it's going to be listed. If it's a retail product, go to retail and then look at what else is in that space and then draw a four-box model with axes that are true to how
Yeah,
consumers talk about the category and then look, okay, and then start extrapolating and looking for the white space. And if you find the white space, which means you need to be talking more about, I'm making this up, more about probiotic and gut health and refreshing, and no one else is doing that. And this is something you know when you talk to consumers that that's what they want and it's true, then utilize that as a design brief and talk to a designer that can do the job. Not all designers can, that can work off a brief and create a visual representation of your brand that works. Most importantly, I used this word before, the memory structure of consumers. Don't educate consumers. It costs too much. Work on something they already know. Call it something they can already relate to, which is what you've tried here. You've tried it with IPA. I can see, and that sort of says, okay, this is just an alternative beer, but it isn't an alternative beer. So I think the direction you've taken is wrong, but the method of what you've done is right. It's
Yeah.
just good. I think you just need to have another run at it again. Um,
Okay.
once you've got your design right, make sure your commercials work, of course, and then start pitching out to the trade. Because if you are truly meeting a consumer need, you convince the buyer of that, then you'll get listings of this. And from listings, you can then start investing in marketing and driving it off the shelf once you've got it on.
And obviously that comes with a financial support. So do you think what stages do you think brands, early stage brands like myself, should search for uh raising funds, or is it keep on bootstrapping it until you get that big break?
Well, the fact you've got a product I've got a product in my hand, which you're now, and you're doing this exercise, you've bootstrapped enough. You just need to keep going. Get this right. If everyone, and I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to look at the other videos that you put up and to know
Huh?
whether there's consistency of message for you. But if you're getting a consistent message, then probably look at doing what I've just said. Make sure you've got this marketing right. Get it in front of the trade. And as soon as you have an interest in the listing, then you'll be able to raise. If you try and raise now and you're giving equity away, you'll give too much equity away. So don't do it.
And
Um,
because you're an investor yourself, what do you look for in brands when it comes to
I
um
look for
yeah,
clearly. I look for a product. I look for a product that meets the consumer need. And so I allow the founder to try and describe that to me, and I need to get a feel for whether that's true or not. So that's number one. Quality of the founder themselves. Are they someone who has a passion and the intelligence to drive this and the creativity to drive their pet project to eventually an exit? So I could get then an eventual exit. And the third point is that the founder needs to know their numbers, and those numbers need to show a gross margin that is reasonably healthy. I.e., you're not going to be just busy fools. You're never going to throw enough money to support the marketing to then drive it, to drive true value of your brand. So it's those
and
three things.
and do you look at like an 8 year exit or 10 year? What's your normal?
No, there's no rule. One of the business I founded back in 14, I sold in 18, so I did it in 4 years. It all depends on the opportunities at the time. And on a new product, if it's got the imagination of the public, they understood it, and you saw some massive growth, and you were showing sort of hockey stick growth. I mean, serious 45
Yeah.
degree growth going on. I'd say find an exit. And if that was in 2 years, do it in 2 years. But in general, whether you're in food or drink, the turnovers of your business are largely the same, irrespective of the category you're in. So if in the first years, you're sort of in the 100,000. Then you get up to about 700,000. Now you've got a listing, and then you build up to 2 million in about year three, stroke four, and then the following year is always 2 million. It's not many more than that because your delists are greater, are as frequent as your listings, and so breaking over 2 million is actually really really difficult, which is why you see so many brands at 2 million turnover. And
Yeah.
once you're through 2 million, you then go to 10, and that 2 to 10 is one of the easiest stages because you have enough evidence in the shops or wherever your sales channel is to show that actually you have a viable rate of sale, a viable product, and then other customers want it anyway. So 2 to 10 million is easy, but getting up to that 2 million is a hard old slog, and then some brands never break out of it.
And
Um,
I've you touched on it earlier. You've got a latest project with Sainsbury's. Are you,
hmm.
as an investment group mission, um, looking for more of a diverse brands and diverse? founders going forward?
Yeah, the Thrive project with Sainsbury's is specifically Black African, Black Caribbean founders. So that was it's very clear, specified by Sainsbury's, and that's what all we're looking for there. We have another program called the Good Food Fund, which we've done one round in the last 2 years. We're coming into a second larger and better round this September, and that's about healthier options of unhealthy things. So
Yeah,
it's about predominantly reducing the obesity load in homes. So anything that's generally sort of high calorie, things like pizzas or cakes or biscuits, where we can show healthier alternatives to reduce the calorific load in homes, then those type of founders and those type of brands will get into that program. So we're very much led by the theme of the program,
yeah,
rather than just saying, okay, he's a good founder, here's a good product. We used to do that. We used to do it individually. We've stopped doing it. It was inefficient for us, and it wasn't the best way for the founders either. So we now do it by program by program. It helps
uh,
us as Mission Ventures execute our acceleration and our help much more efficiently and effectively. So we're now doing by program. So yeah, and at the moment, this is beer. Well, it depends on how you position this, whether you would come into the good food program. The fact is, alcoholic might be a
yeah.
problem, or very low alcohol level. But we keep announcing and launching new programs, and we will continue to do that through this year and next. So
Cool.
yeah, look out for our programs.
But a couple of quick questions, and they're a bit left field, so just a bit open mind with them. So is there something that you're currently bitter about that you want to resolve, and how do you plan to go about it?
Something I'm bitter about.
Yeah,
Bitter.
yeah, bitter.
In the food and drink space. Yeah.
Anywhere. Yeah,
I'm very frustrated in the baby food infant feeding category. I think it's appalling what we serve our babies. Appalling. Our country should be shocked to what we
yeah,
serve our babies. So I am, I suppose, emotionally charged on that one. I want solutions on that, and it can be resolved. You cannot give babies such high sugar product just because it contains fruit is not right for a baby, which then leads into kids having a very huge sweet tooth, which then leads into obesity. So I'm, to use your word, bitter about that, and I want to do something about that. Also, again, the wrong word is bitter, but the drinks industry I think is well protected. So what you can put the ingredients on food, you put the ingredients on soft drinks, but as soon as you put alcohol in it, you can then not declare your ingredients,
yeah,
which allows the Diageos, the big brands, to put in utter rubbish into the big alcoholic brands. And so people don't know what they're drinking.
no,
And also, I'm not saying don't drink. I'm not a Puritan. No, drinking is fine, but I think everyone should deserve to know what they're drinking when they're drinking one of their favorite brands in the pub or at home. And I would campaign if I could to make a lot more visibility and transparency within the alcohol drink market.
cool. So, as I touched again earlier on this, so we redefine the term IPA. So instead of Indian Pale Ale, it's an ideal plausible alternative. If you could choose to redefine anything, what would it be and why?
On your brand,
No, anything in the you could choose to redefine.
that's a very wide and big question. I'm not sure I can answer that. It's too wide.
Okay. Say in the food and drink industry.
If I could redefine it,
Yeah.
hmm. um, I'd probably love to redefine, and this is actually very dull, but it is important. Redefine the traffic light system that sits on all food. Well, no, most food and drink. Consumers don't understand it. It's manufacturer derived. In Europe, they use something called Nutri-Score, massive resistance in UK manufacturers to use it because it actually produces clarity to the consumer about whether something is healthy or not.
Yeah.
It's going to be about the UK and the power of our manufacturing base and the power of those big brands really resist giving clarity to the consumer. So if I could reset something, I would scrap the current traffic light system and force everyone by law to put on the European Nutri-Score, which was in intention, and then Brexit happened. So it fell away. So I would sort out our traffic lights and make them easier for consumers to understand.
Cool. And are you a fan of brunch?
As a name,
And no, as brunch is a course. So in between
so you mean
breakfast and
you
lunch.
like something in between breakfast and
Yeah.
well, yeah, because I generally do intermittent fasting, so I'd never have breakfast. So if this means I could eat my lunch earlier, yeah, I'm a fan for brunch.
So what would you choose to order food wise and drink wise?
On a brunch,
Yeah.
if I was actually sitting down for a brunch and I'm talking about 11 o'clock, it'd be a Saturday or a Sunday, and it'd be a weekend, and
Yeah.
that brunch is likely to be something like salmon, bagels, scrambled eggs, that sort of thing. And I wouldn't drink. Would I drink this? No, I wouldn't drink this. I'd be on probably tea or coffee.
Cool. And what do you think our biggest USP is?
Um, your USP is actually the kvass and the good bacteria. It's just how you communicate it.
Yeah, it's a big communication, and it will. I think it's going to take a while to get that fine tuned, but I'll keep on put
Keep going.
keep on going on it. And yeah, thank you for trying it.
Kevin, thank you. Thanks. It was enjoyable,
It
and
was
good luck with it. Good luck with it. And it's a good product. Just get the marketing a little bit squared off, and I think you do well.
um, it is really interesting, and gaining knowledge from people with expertise like yourself is very important. I find that at this early stage, hearing, and this is why I'm doing it with a lot of people who are in the industry, talking to you lot because you lot have the experience, so I can gain that and hear little nuggets from what you say to take away and rethink and push the brand to go forward. But no, thank you
Good,
very much.
good. I'm
Have a
glad
great
you're doing
evening.
it. All right, Angie. Cheerio. Bye
Cheers.
bye.